So one of the most controversial topics when it comes to van conversions is whether or not you should add a vapor barrier. I want to explain to you my beliefs on this, what I think is the right answer, but ultimately it's down to you to do your research, gather all the information you can and come to the conclusion that makes sense to you. So I'll post this video. Some people tell me I'm absolutely right. Some people tell me I'm an idiot and my approach is wrong. There's no right or wrong answer. I haven't seen any scientific data that really confirms this either way. But like I said, it's down to you to follow the information that makes the most sense to you. So firstly, let's look at why we would put a vapor barrier in the first place, why we would even consider doing that. When we construct a house, and this is where the idea of vapor barrier comes from, when we build a house or a building, we have the outer shell of the building which is impenetrable to water. It's built as a completely watertight layer, and the idea is we add a vapor barrier on the inside so that moisture does not condense in the wall in the form of condensation and ruin the insulation. Typically in a house you'd use fiberglass insulation like rock wool, which holds moisture, and we really don't want that fiberglass insulation getting wet. So it's important we have a vapor barrier on the inside of the house so the cavity wall stays completely dry. So that's where the idea of the vapor barrier comes from, which makes sense in a house. Now in a van, a vapor barrier would make sense if the outer skin of the van again was completely impenetrable to water. But the thing is, it's not. A van was never built to be completely watertight. It's not a submarine, it's just metal panels bolted together. We have to expect that a little bit of water is going to get inside the walls of our van. They literally put drainage channels into vans because of this very reason. So we have to assume a little bit of moisture is going to get inside those walls. So what happens if moisture is getting in, even a small amount, from the outside or the roof or wherever it's trickling in from, and we then seal that wall with a vapor barrier? That moisture, it cannot escape. It's just trapped in that wall forever, which is where you're going to get all these problems like damp, mold, rot from the inside out. If we are using the correct kind of closed cell insulation that doesn't hold and trap moisture, it's not such a big deal if a little bit of water gets in there anyway, because the insulation is going to release it. It's not going to hold on to it. It's not going to go rotten in the way that the fiberglass wall does. But if the water gets in there and it's trapped in there by the vapor barrier, it cannot escape. It can't get out, and that's when we start having problems. Whereas if we don't have the vapor barrier and the walls can breathe, a little bit of moisture in there isn't the end of the world, because it's going to dry out, it's going to evaporate, and the moisture is going to leave the walls. It's not going to stay stuck in there as it would if we had the vapor barrier. The second thing to add is, I think a vapor barrier is treating a symptom rather than treating the cause. So the cause of the problems is obviously moisture. It's much more important and effective to make sure we don't have moisture in the van in the first place. So we do that through a proper diesel heater that is going to dry the van out, cause any moisture in the van to completely dry out and evaporate, but also having a proper extractor fan like a max air fan in the ceiling that is just going to suck all of that moist air out of the van and get it out. As well as your passive ventilation strategies like two windows opposite each other, so you can get that cross flow ventilation through the van, suck all that moist air out. Having your floor vents in the base of the van, so your max air fan can actually draw the damp air out through the van and expel it. So that way we're treating the problem, not just treating a symptom. So that's why personally I don't think that we should be using a vapor barrier. I have heard quite a lot of horror stories from people that added vapor barriers, and a while later they found a lot of moisture there in the walls. I've never heard anyone have a problem from not installing a vapor barrier. So long as we are properly insulating with closed cell insulation that's not going to struggle with damp and moisture, is not going to hold on to water, and ultimately if we're sticking closed cell insulation to the skin of the van to stop moisture condensing on the metal, that's kind of acting as a vapor barrier anyway. So to add another one I don't think is necessary. But that's just my thoughts on the issue. Let me know what you think in the comments. Really keen to hear other people's experience of this.